Chapter 1. The Cracked Jar. Why your broken places are the only way the light gets in. Shh. Lean closer. There's a secret whispered only in the deepest watches of the night, when the world's noise finally stills and the ache within feels loudest. Dostoevsky knew it. Carved it onto his soul in a Siberian frost that could snap bones. What if the very brokenness you carry, the flaw you try so hard to hide or mend before sleep, isn't a mistake at all? What if it's the sacred crack, the only place where the true light can ever enter? Imagine falling asleep, not fighting your fractures, but welcoming them as ancient, necessary doorways. Imagine the relief, the sigh, of letting the jagged edges simply be. What happens to the soul that spends its nights trying to glue itself whole, never knowing the luminous beauty spilling through the breaks? Tonight, let the cracks breathe. Picture him, Fyodor Mikhailovich, not the titan of literature, not yet, just a man, young, terrified, standing on the Semyonovsky Square in St. Petersburg. Dawn is a dirty gray smear. The Tsar's sentence hangs in the frozen air like an executioner's blade. Death by firing squad. The blindfold is rough against his skin. He hears the rifles being raised, the metallic click of preparation, the held breath of the squad. He feels the immensity of the end, the crushing weight of nothingness. And then, the reprieve, a last-minute pardon, exile instead. Siberia. But in that sliver of time between the click and the pardon, something shattered in him. Or did it finally open? He would spend years in the cold, hard labor, the damp seeping into his bones, the company of thieves and murderers his only solace. And it was there, in that crushing darkness, that he felt it. Not despite the suffering, but through it. A strange warmth, an unbearable clarity, like light pouring not around a solid, perfect vessel, but through the fissures created by the hammer blows of existence. His epilepsy wasn't just a curse, it was a terrifying window into another layer of being, a violent rupture that also brought transcendent vision. His gambling wasn't merely self-destruction, it was a desperate, agonizing dance with chaos, a way to feel the terrifying edge of freedom and the abyss beneath it. Think of Alyosha Karamazov, the purest soul perhaps Dostoevsky ever conjured. His strength doesn't come from being unbreakable. It flows from his capacity to be shattered by the world's pain, by his father's grotesquerie, by Ivan's devastating intellect, by the suffering of children. He is a vessel constantly cracked open by empathy, and through those cracks pours a love that is fierce, forgiving, and ultimately transformative. His holiness is porous, or consider Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. He builds a theory of the extraordinary man, the superior being who can step beyond conventional morality. He tries to be that perfect, unfeeling instrument of will. He murders. And what happens? His carefully constructed vessel of intellectual superiority shatters. Guilt, fever, paranoia, the cracks appear instantly. And it's through these agonizing fissures that Sonia's humble candlelight finally reaches him. That the possibility of redemption, of becoming human again, bleeds into his desolation. His salvation requires his brokenness. Your weariness tonight, dear listener, that heaviness you carry, the regret that nags, the anxiety that hums beneath the surface, the old wound that twinges in the quiet. Dostoevsky whispers, don't waste your precious night energy trying to plaster over these cracks with forced positivity or numbing distraction. That's the world's way. The sleepless way. Feel the cold air entering through the broken pane. It's real. It's yours. And it's precisely where the stars, unseen by those in sealed, stuffy rooms, can finally be glimpsed. Your flaw, your pain, your perceived failure. It's not a sign you've fallen short of some imagined wholeness. It's the signature of your unique passage through life, the evidence of your encounters with the hard edges of reality. It's where your deepest understanding is forged, where compassion for others, and crucially, for yourself, is born. To deny the crack is to deny the light yearning to enter. Tonight, let the Siberian wind blow through. Feel it. It carries not just cold, but an astonishing clarity. Your fractured places aren't mistakes. They are the sacred geography of your soul. Rest comes not from sealing them shut, but from letting the night sky pour in, stars and all. Feel the weight, not of the brokenness, but of the light it allows, spilling onto the floor of your heart, warm, soft, undeniable, inviting rest, deep, deep rest. And as that light pools around you, softening the edges of the day, a question forms, quiet but insistent, like the scent of damp earth after rain. What if true peace, the kind that sinks you into the mattress like a stone into a still pond, lies not in building walls against the world, but in dissolving them utterly? What happens when we stop seeing others as separate and start feeling the world through their skin? The whisper from the shadows grows. Lean closer. Chapter 2. Walking in muddy boots. The terrifying, liberating weight of seeing through another's eyes. That sigh you just breathed, hold on to the warmth of it for a moment, because the next step, it asks something immense of us, something Dostoevsky unearthed in the filthy corners of St. Petersburg taverns and the shared misery of the prison barracks. It's easy to judge from a distance, isn't it? To see the drunkard, the liar, the angry soul, and draw our robes tighter. But what if? The path to genuine rest, the kind that unties every knot in your shoulders, demands we take off our own shoes and step barefoot into the cold, wet mud of their existence. Not to agree, not to condone, but simply to see. To feel the grit between their toes, the terrifying, liberating act of looking out from behind their eyes, if only for a trembling heartbeat. What peace might flood in when we finally lay down the exhausting burden of being the sole judge. Imagine the relief of letting that gavel fall silent. Dostoevsky didn't just write about characters. He inhabited them. He didn't stand above the underground man, that spiteful, paralyzed creature spewing venom at the world and himself. Dostoevsky crawled into his cramped, damp hole. He felt the perverse thrill of the man's self-loathing, the addictive sting of his isolation, the twisted logic that made his suffering a kind of perverted victory. He didn't excuse it. He understood it. From the inside, he saw the terrified, humiliated child hiding beneath the layers of defensive bile. That's the alchemy, not approval, comprehension. Deep, bone-chilling, uncomfortable comprehension. Think of Dmitry Karamazov, the passionate, impulsive, disastrously flawed elder brother. He's easy to condemn, a spendthrift, a brawler, seemingly ruled by base desires. But Dostoevsky takes us on a harrowing journey with him. We feel the suffocating weight of his father's contempt, the intoxicating rush of his own vitality that constantly tips into chaos, the agonizing chasm between his grand gestures of feeling and his pathetic actions. We stand beside him in his darkest hour, accused of a murder he didn't commit, and feel the terrifying mix of despair, nobility, and utter bewilderment that crashes over him. We see why he is as he is. We see the flicker of something immense and tragic, straining against the cage of his nature. We don't necessarily like him, but we know him. And in that knowing, condemnation loses its sharp, easy edge. It becomes heavy, complicated, human. This is the radical empathy Dostoevsky offers as a balm for the soul. It's not sentimentality. It's not weakness. It's the hardest work imaginable. It means stepping off the safe platform of our own righteousness. It means encountering the murderer, the miser, the betrayer, and asking, not how could they, but what cold wind has blown constantly against their back? What hunger gnaws at their belly that I have never known? It means feeling the rough grain of the wood on the bench where the lonely outcast sits day after day. It means tasting the cheap vodka that burns the throat of the lost soul, not as a vice, but as the only warmth they can afford. Why is this the path to rest? Because judgment is exhausting. It's a constant clenching of the jaw, of the heart, of the mind. Building the case, polishing the evidence of another's failings or our own superiority, maintaining the walls that keep them out, it drains the life from us, drop by precious drop. It keeps the mind whirring long after the lights are out. But empathy, true, deep-seeing empathy, is a release. It's the unclenching. It's laying down the heavy gavel. It doesn't mean accepting harm or abandoning boundaries. It means understanding the source of the harm, the why behind the boundary violation. It diffuses the personal sting. That person who cut you off in traffic. Imagine the hospital room they might be racing towards. The colleague who snapped. Feel the crushing weight of the debt they might be drowning in. The old hurt from someone you loved. See the chain of their own unhealed wounds, stretching back generations. This isn't about them. It's about you, about unknotting your soul. When you practice this deep seeing, this stepping into muddy boots, you release a torrent of tension you didn't even know you carried. You stop fighting the world's inherent painful complexity. You allow it to be flawed, tragic, messy, and therefore, strangely, beautiful. You stop taking every act as a personal affront. The world softens. Your shoulders drop. Your breath deepens. The relentless internal commentary, the courtroom in your mind, finally adjourns for the night. There's just the quiet hum of existence, shared, understood, accepted. Feel that unclenching now, starting in your forehead, smoothing, flowing down, through your jaw, your neck, shoulders, a warm wave of letting go, the heavy robe of judgment slipping off, leaving you lighter, open, ready for the deep, forgiving dark, settling like soft ash over the fevered world. And in that profound quiet, where judgment dissolves like sugar in warm tea, a final, almost imperceptible tremor stirs. What if? The freedom we chase in our dreams, the weightlessness we crave, isn't found in shedding burdens, but in choosing to shoulder one, specific, impossible weight. What strange liberation waits in the bowing of the spine, for love's sake. Listen, the last candle flickers, revealing the final, most paradoxical secret. Chapter 3. The Feather That Anchors. Dostoevsky's forbidden secret of finding freedom in bearing the world. We've traveled far into the night, haven't we? Past the broken places where light enters, through the muddy fields where another's pain becomes our own. Now, in this deepest quiet, Dostoevsky offers his most unsettling whisper, the one that feels like a secret passed from lips barely moving. We dream of freedom, of soaring, unburdened. We toss and turn, weighted by obligations, expectations, the sheer mass of living. But what if What if true flight, the kind that lifts the soul clear of the earth, begins not with letting go, but with choosing to hold on, with bending low, and lifting a weight so immense, so terrifyingly beautiful, it paradoxically anchors us to the sky? What if the feather that floats is lost to every breeze, while the stone, accepting its place in the riverbed, finds a profound, unshakable peace? Imagine the deep sigh of choosing your sacred burden. Dostoevsky's world is crushing. Poverty grinds, institutions oppress, ideologies demand terrible sacrifices. Suffering is relentless. The instinct, the screaming impulse of his characters is often to escape. Raskolnikov tries to rise above morality, to become a Napoleon, free from the constraints of conscience. Stavrogin in Demons seeks absolute freedom through negation, through the void, a freedom that becomes a terrifying, annihilating emptiness. The underground man seeks freedom in isolation, in his spiteful rejection of the crystal palace of rational utopia, only to find himself trapped in a smaller, fouler cage of his own making. But Dostoevsky points towards a different path, a harder path, a paradoxical path. True freedom, he whispers through Sonya Marmeladova, through Alyosha Karamazov, through Prince Mishkin, isn't escape from responsibility, but the voluntary, loving embrace of it. Sonya, forced into prostitution to feed her destitute family, carries a burden that should break her. Yet in bearing it, not passively, but with a fierce, humble love, she becomes luminous. She becomes the anchor for Raskolnikov's sinking soul. Her freedom isn't license. It's the profound liberty found in knowing why she bears the weight. It gives her suffering meaning, and in that meaning, a terrible, unbreakable strength. She isn't floating away. She's rooted in love. And that root gives her a stability Raskolnikov's intellectual acrobatics could never touch. Prince Mishkin, the idiot, is perhaps the purest embodiment. He stumbles into the sophisticated, cynical, predatory world of St. Petersburg society. He bears the weight of his epilepsy, his social awkwardness, his overwhelming, almost childlike empathy. He feels the pain of others as his own, Nastasia Filipovna's torment, Rogozhin's passionate despair, Aglaya's confusion. He doesn't flee. He doesn't build walls. He steps towards the pain, bearing it with him. He offers not solutions, but presence, not judgment, but shared sorrow. And in this voluntary bearing, this acceptance of the world's crushing weight out of love, he achieves a kind of freedom the polished, self-serving characters around him can never comprehend. He is free from their pettiness, their schemes, their desperate need for masks, because he has chosen his burden, the weight of compassion. It breaks him in a way. But in the breaking, he reveals a freedom that transcends the world's understanding. He is anchored, by love, to something eternal. This is the forbidden secret. Freedom isn't weightlessness. Weightlessness is chaos, drift, the terror of the abyss. True freedom is purposeful weight. It's the sailor choosing the anchor, not because he wants to sink, but because he knows it will hold him fast against the storm, allowing him to ride the waves instead of being capsized by them. It's choosing the burden that gives your life meaning, caring for the aging parent, nurturing the fragile dream, fighting for the lost cause, simply showing up day after day for the people who need you. It's Alyosha choosing to stay in the world amidst the Karamazov chaos, to bear witness, to love, to serve as a quiet point of light rather than fleeing to the monastery's peaceful isolation. His burden is his freedom. Your exhaustion tonight, the weight you feel, Dostoevsky asks, Is it a meaningless pressure, or have you chosen it? Or perhaps, can you choose it? Not the petty anxieties, the self-imposed shoulds, the clutter of modern life, but the one true weight, the person, the purpose, the small act of love that defines your soul's compass. When you find that, when you consciously bend your shoulders to that specific sacred yoke, something miraculous happens. The scattered, draining weights of the world, the envy, the comparisons, the relentless pursuit of more, they lose their grip. They become feathers brushing against the solid oak of your chosen burden. You are anchored, centered. The chaotic waves of circumstance still crash, but you move with them, rooted in purpose. You are free because you are bound to something greater than yourself. The exhaustion transforms. It becomes the deep, satisfying ache of the plowman at dusk, knowing his field is tended. It becomes peace. Feel that now, the search within for your anchor. Not a chain, but a root, sinking deep into the warm, dark earth of meaning. Is it the hand of a loved one resting in yours? The quiet promise made to yourself in a moment of clarity? The small act of creation only you can bring? Find it in the stillness. Feel its shape, its texture, its undeniable rightness. Now, consciously, willingly, lift it. Settle it onto your shoulders. Feel its weight, yes, but feel too the immediate grounding, the ceasing of the frantic drift. The world's chaotic winds. They blow. But you are held fast, rooted, anchored, not to the bottom of the sea, but to the bedrock of your own chosen meaning. This weight, this sacred burden, is not your cage. It is your wings. It holds you steady, safe, within the vast, star-strewn sky of the night. Let its solid presence, the weight of your chosen love, your chosen purpose, press you gently, deeply, into the waiting embrace of the mattress, into the earth, into the profound, silent freedom of sleep. Drift, anchored, free. Chapter 4. The Sacred Tremor. Why your deepest suffering holds the map home. Close your eyes now, just for a moment. Let the weight of the day, all those sharp edges and buzzing thoughts, let them soften, blur, like ink dissolving in dark water. Imagine, you're not lying in your bed, but standing at the threshold of a place few dare to enter. A narrow corridor, stone walls cool against your fingertips. The only light comes from a single, guttering candle flame, dancing behind a heavy oak door at the far end. Can you hear it? Not a sound exactly, more like a vibration. A deep, resonant hum that seems to come up through the soles of your feet, into your bones. It feels familiar, like the ache you carry after a long day, the tender bruise left by a harsh word, the quiet thrum of loneliness that sometimes visits in the deepest watches of the night. That vibration. Dostoevsky knew it intimately. He called it the underground, not a place beneath the city, but a place beneath the surface, beneath the carefully constructed persona you show the world, beneath even your own rational thoughts. It's the cellar of your soul. And most of us, we padlock that door. We pile furniture against it. We pretend it isn't there. This chamber echoing with the raw, unfiltered tremors of being human. The suffering, the confusion, the wild, irrational yearnings. What if that lock you've kept so tight is the very thing keeping you awake? What if the map to peace is etched not in the stars, but in the trembling lines of your own deepest pain? What happens to the soul that forever flees its own underground, that never learns to listen to its sacred tremor? Picture Dostoevsky himself, not as the stern prophet of portraits, but as a man hunched over a rough prison bunk in Siberia. The air bites cold. The future is a gray, formless void. Around him, the sounds of forgotten men. This wasn't just punishment. It was an annihilation of everything he thought he was. Writer, thinker, European gentleman, stripped bare. And in that brutal stripping, something else was revealed. Not nobility, not sudden enlightenment, but a raw, almost animal aliveness. He felt the sting of the lash not just on his back, but vibrating in the core of his being. He tasted the metallic tang of despair on his tongue, thick and real. He heard the guttural coughs of his fellow prisoners, not as noise, but as the shared song of the condemned. It was real, utterly, terrifyingly real. And in that crushing reality, amidst the suffering, a strange thing happened. He began to see, not with the eyes of logic, but with the eyes of the underground, eyes accustomed to the dark. He saw the intricate, terrifying beauty of the human heart laid bare. He saw how suffering wasn't merely an obstacle to happiness. It was the very ground upon which understanding is built, the friction that sparks the soul awake. Think of your own hand, resting now perhaps on your chest. Feel the warmth of your own skin beneath your fingertips. That warmth. It's a constant hum, isn't it? A vibration of life. We rarely notice it, until it changes, until it becomes the sharp sting of a cut, the dull throb of a bruise, the fevered pulse of illness. Then we pay attention. Suffering commands our presence. It roots us, violently, exquisitely, in the now. Dostoevsky didn't glorify pain. He knew its capacity to twist and destroy. But he also sensed in his bones its paradoxical power. Like the pressure deep within the earth that forms diamonds, or the crushing weight of the sea that shapes the strongest coral, suffering has an alchemy. It strips away the non-essential. It forces a reckoning. That carefully curated image you present to the world, the underground doesn't recognize it. The expectations you pile upon yourself, they crumble under the weight of genuine anguish. What's left is terrifyingly simple. You. Not the idea of you, not the performance, but the raw, trembling core, the child who still feels the sting of rejection, the dreamer whose hopes feel perpetually out of reach, the lover who knows the exquisite vulnerability of caring deeply. This core, it doesn't speak the language of reason. It speaks in tremors, in gut feelings, in the sudden, inexplicable tears that well up when you hear a certain piece of music, in the irrational surge of protectiveness you feel for a stranger, in the deep, wordless longing that washes over you sometimes beneath a vast, indifferent sky. This is the language of the underground. This is the map. Your exhaustion tonight, that heavy-lidded weariness. It might not just be the day's toil. It might be the weight of ignoring that tremor. It's the effort of keeping the cellar door bolted. The soul grows weary of the performance, of the constant evasion. Dostoevsky whispers from the shadows, lean into the tremor, don't flinch. Feel the ache in your shoulder, not as an enemy, but as a signal. Acknowledge the loneliness that flickers at the edge of your thoughts, not as a failing, but as a testament to your capacity for connection. That knot of anxiety in your chest, it's not just fear, it's energy, the raw, undirected energy of being alive in a complex, often painful world. Don't analyze it tonight. Don't fight it. Just feel it. Let it hum. Let it vibrate through you. Imagine it softening, spreading out from that tight knot like warm honey, flowing down your arms, your legs, warming your fingers, your toes, dissolving the tension. It's not pleasant, perhaps, but it's real. And in that reality, there's a profound release. It's the sound of a heavy lock clicking open, the groan of a long unused door slowly swinging inward, revealing not a monster, but a forgotten part of yourself, a part that holds the key to rest. Because when you stop fleeing your own depths, when you acknowledge the sacred tremor, you stop fighting yourself. And only then can the gentle current of sleep finally carry you down, down, into the quiet harbor within. And as you drift on that current, feeling the deep relief of no longer running, a new question might brush against your mind, soft as a moth's wing against a window pane. If suffering reveals the core, what happens when that core is faced with the dizzying, terrifying expanse of absolute freedom? What chains do we cling to, even in our dreams? Chapter 5. The Whispered Rebellion. When choosing chains becomes your truest freedom. That sigh you just breathed, deep, releasing. That's the sound of a burden loosening, isn't it? The burden of pretending the cellar isn't there. Now, imagine stepping through that open door, not into darkness, but into a vast open landscape under a twilight sky. The air is cool, crisp. It smells of distant rain and turned earth. There's space, so much space. It feels almost overwhelming. This is the landscape Dostoevsky feared and revered. Freedom. Not the freedom from things, taxes, rules, obligations, but the terrifying, exhilarating freedom to be. The freedom to choose. Absolutely anything. To define your own meaning. To forge your own path. It sounds like paradise, doesn't it? The ultimate liberation. Why, then, does your breath catch slightly at the thought? Why does a faint tremor, different from the last, ripple through your chest? Dostoevsky understood this tremor too. He called it the burden of the irrational, the terrifying weight of having no map imposed from above, only the compass spinning wildly within your own chest. What if true freedom isn't the absence of chains, but the courage to choose which chains will define you? What if the soul that flees this choice, forever choosing the easy path, the well-trodden road, condemns itself to a deeper, more restless kind of prison? What dreams are lost when we refuse the whispered rebellion of responsibility? Picture Raskolnikov, not as a murderer, but as a young man pacing a tiny, airless room in St. Petersburg. The city presses in, humid, suffocating. His theories spin in his head, brilliant, cold, logical. He believes he can transcend morality. He believes he is extraordinary, beyond the rules that bind ordinary men. He chooses to kill the pawnbroker, a brutal assertion of his absolute freedom. But then, the freedom curdles. It becomes a crushing weight. The world doesn't applaud his transcendence. It closes in. Guilt isn't a societal construct. It's a physical presence, a sickness in his gut, a phantom scream in his ears. The pawnbroker's face haunts him. The meaning he tried to impose, the extraordinary man theory, shatters like cheap glass. His freedom, exercised without anchor, becomes his hell. Dostoevsky shows us this with unflinching clarity. Absolute, unbridled freedom is a desert, a void. Without responsibility, without choosing to be bound by something, love, compassion, a commitment to truth, even a simple act of kindness, freedom becomes meaningless. Worse, it becomes destructive. It turns inward, gnawing at the soul. The underground man rages against the Crystal Palace, a symbol of a perfect, rational, predictable utopia. Why? Because he senses that such perfection, such imposed order, would annihilate the very thing that makes him human, his perverse, irrational, unpredictable will, his freedom to choose, even to choose destruction, to choose suffering, to choose spite. 2 + 2 = 4? But what if I want it to be 5? That childish defiance, that's the spark of the human spirit. It's messy, it's inconvenient, it's essential. True freedom, Dostoevsky whispers into the twilight air of this vast landscape, isn't found in rejecting all constraints. It's found in the whispered rebellion of choosing your constraints, choosing your chains. It's the profound paradox to bind yourself willingly to love, knowing it brings vulnerability and pain, to commit to a craft, knowing it demands sacrifice and uncertainty, to embrace a faith, knowing it lives alongside doubt, to choose kindness, even when cynicism is easier. This choosing, this is the active, courageous exercise of freedom. It's not passive acceptance of society's rules. It's a deep, internal yes. A yes that carries weight, the weight of responsibility. The underground man is paralyzed because he won't choose. He sees the absurdity of every system, the flaws in every ideology, the potential for humiliation in every action. So he retreats. He chooses not to choose. And in that refusal, he imprisons himself more effectively than any Siberian jail. His freedom becomes a cage of his own making, lined with bitter thoughts and stale air. Your weariness, sometimes, it feels like that kind of prison, doesn't it? The exhaustion of indecision, the weight of 1,000 unchosen paths, the low hum of resentment for obligations you never consciously embraced. That's the soul suffocating under the burden of unclaimed freedom. Tonight, let the vastness of your own possibilities soften. You don't need to map the entire landscape. You don't need to solve every riddle. Feel the cool twilight air on your face. It's the breath of possibility. What tiny chain could you choose to embrace right now? Not a grand, life-altering vow, but a small, deliberate act of responsibility to your own soul. The responsibility to rest, to let go of the need to figure it all out. The responsibility to forgive yourself for the choices you didn't make. The responsibility to simply be here, now, breathing in this moment, choosing this chain, the chain of presence, the chain of acceptance, isn't weakness. It's the whispered rebellion against the tyranny of constant striving, constant deciding, constant proving. It's choosing the chain that anchors you, so you can finally stop drifting. Feel that anchor now, a gentle weight, settling deep within you, holding you steady in the vast, beautiful twilight. Let the landscape blur at the edges, becoming soft, impressionistic, like a watercolor painting left in the rain. The responsibility to rest is the deepest freedom of all. Let it claim you. Feel the tension of constant choosing melt away, replaced by the quiet certainty of simply being held, here, now, safe within the boundaries you have gently, rebelliously chosen for this night. Drift, anchored, free, and anchored there, in the quiet harbor of chosen rest, you might glimpse, like a reflection in still water, the faintest image, not of perfection, but of something cracked, something broken, yet shimmering with a strange, undeniable light. What if the divine isn't found in the flawless, but waits patiently in the very places we are shattered? Chapter 6. The Cracked Icon. Finding God and yourself in the shattered places. That deep anchoring peace you feel, it's like sinking into warm, dark velvet, isn't it? A profound stillness. Yet within that stillness, if you listen, there's a faint resonance, like the lingering note of a bell struck long ago, vibrating in the air. It's the echo of imperfection, the tiny crack in the teacup, the scar you trace absently, the dream that didn't come true, the regret that surfaces sometimes, unbidden, like a shy creature from the deep. We spend so much energy, don't we, trying to hide these cracks, polishing the surface, projecting wholeness. What if that very effort, that denial of the broken places, is the barrier to the deepest peace? What if the divine, the sacred spark, Dostoevsky's desperate searching God, doesn't reside in the marble halls of perfection, but dwells precisely within the fissures? What if your exhaustion is the soul's weariness from holding the pieces together instead of letting the light shine through the breaks? What beauty is lost when we refuse to see the holiness in our own fragmented, fragile humanity? Think of Alyosha Karamazov, not as a saint on a pedestal, but as a young man kneeling in the monastery garden, his face pressed into the dark, damp earth after the death of his beloved elder, Zosima. His world has shattered. The icon of his faith, the wise, gentle starets, has died. And worse, his body begins to decay prematurely, emitting an odor that scandalizes the town and mocks Alyosha's belief in his sanctity. It's a brutal, humiliating crack in his perfect icon of faith. He is devastated, lost. He stumbles out into the world, into the messy, chaotic town, even into a tavern. He doesn't find easy answers. He doesn't find a pristine, untouchable God. Instead, he finds Grushenka, not a saint, but a woman of passion, complexity, even scandal. And she offers him, not theology, but a simple act of human connection, a moment of shared understanding, a gesture of unexpected kindness, an onion, a silly, humble onion offered in a folk tale she tells. And in that cracked moment, amidst the smell of decay and cheap tavern wine, amidst his own shattered certainty, Alyosha experiences a profound epiphany, not despite the brokenness, but through it. The divine light didn't shine from the uncorrupted body of the elder. It shone through Grushenka's imperfect compassion, through Alyosha's own raw vulnerability. The icon wasn't destroyed. It was revealed in its true cracked human form. God was in the onion. Dostoevsky, through torment and doubt, clawed his way towards a faith that lived alongside suffering and imperfection. It wasn't a faith of certainty, but a faith of love in action, found amidst the ruins. He saw the soul not as a pristine statue, but as a mosaic, made beautiful by the very fragments that compose it, held together by the mortar of compassion and shared struggle. Your cracks, your doubts, your failures. They aren't signs of weakness or divine abandonment. They are the places where the inner light leaks out. They are the points of contact where your polished perfection repels, your vulnerability connects, where your certainty judges, your doubt invites, where your strength intimidates, your fragility embraces. That knot of anxiety you felt earlier, it's a crack. That pang of regret, a fissure. The weariness that brought you here tonight, a profound fracture in the facade of relentless energy. Don't try to plaster over them tonight. Don't judge them. Instead, imagine them as tiny windows. Feel the cool night air, your night air, drifting in through those cracks. It's the breath of the world, touching the deepest parts of you. It's the breath of something vast, something gentle, flowing in. Your exhaustion is sacred. It's the body and soul confessing. I am not whole. I am not perfect. I am human. And in that confession, there is immense relief. The relief of laying down the impossible burden of being flawless. Feel that burden dissolving now, like salt in warm water. Feel the cracks not as wounds, but as openings, places where tenderness can enter, places where your own inner light can softly radiate outwards, mingling with the starlight beyond your window. Dostoevsky whispers, "Look for God not in the blinding light of certainty, but in the flickering candle flame of shared humanity, in the unexpected kindness, in the quiet endurance, in the simple act of breathing through the pain, in the forgiveness offered, especially to yourself." That forgiveness, it's the golden thread that mends the mosaic, not by erasing the cracks, but by weaving them into the pattern. So tonight, as you lie here in the quiet cathedral of your room, see the cracks in your own icon. See the doubts, the fears, the weariness. Don't turn away. Let them be. And in the very center of that fractured self, feel the gentle pulse, the quiet ember of something unbreakable, something that is, simply because it is. Not perfect, not all-knowing, just present, just alive, just loved, even here, even now, even in the broken places. Let that ember glow, warm, soft, radiating a peace that doesn't demand wholeness, only acceptance. Let its gentle light fill the cracks, turning them into rivers of gold in the landscape of your soul. Feel the warmth spreading from that quiet center, flowing out through your limbs, softening every muscle, easing every thought, cradling you deeper and deeper into the embrace of the night, where brokenness and beauty are one, and sleep is simply coming home. Breathe and let go into the perfect imperfection of being. Chapter 7. The Stone That Breathes. Finding warmth in the weight you carry. Imagine, just for a moment, the weight in your chest right now. That dull pressure, that quiet ache you carry home from the world. Not the sharp pains, perhaps, but the deeper ones. The worry for someone you love. The unfinished task that nags. The sense of being slightly adrift. We push it down. We call it burden. We wish it gone. But what if that very weight is the beginning of finding your true warmth? What if Dostoevsky, writing by flickering candlelight in a cramped St. Petersburg apartment, his own heart heavy with exile, debt, and the memory of the firing squad, whispered a secret about stones, not stones to throw or stones to build walls, but a stone you carry, a stone that breathes. Lean closer. The night is listening. Think of Alyosha Karamazov, young, kind, his heart wide open like a window on a spring morning. Yet even Alyosha carried stones, the crushing weight of his family's chaos, the shadow of doubt cast by his brother Ivan's terrifying intellect, the suffocating air of the monastery, the raw grief for his elder Zosima. Dostoevsky doesn't let him escape it. He makes Alyosha feel it. That pressure, it's real. It's the grit beneath your fingernails after a long day, the low thrum of exhaustion in your bones as you finally sink into bed. We fight it, don't we? We try to polish it away or hide it deep inside a drawer, hoping the morning light won't find it. But Dostoevsky, he points to that stone, not to crush you with it, but to ask, feel its texture. Is it smooth? Is it rough? Is it cold? Or is there deep within its core a faint, surprising warmth, like a pebble left in the sun all afternoon, holding on to the light long after dusk has fallen? He knew this warmth intimately, Fyodor Mikhailovich, standing on the Semyonovsky Square execution ground, the Tsar's rifles aimed at his heart. The sentence read aloud, only to have it commuted at the last, shattering second, to Siberian exile. 4 years in Omsk fortress, cold that bit to the marrow, the clang of chains, the faces of men broken by cruelty or broken by their own darkness, an unimaginable stone. Yet, it was there, in that frozen hell, shoveling snow under a leaden sky, that his stone began, not to disappear, but to breathe. He felt the rough hands of fellow prisoners sharing a stale crust. He saw flickers of impossible dignity in eyes dulled by suffering. He discovered a capacity for endurance, no, more than endurance, a capacity for seeing, that he never knew lay dormant within himself. The weight didn't vanish, it transformed. It became the very ground he stood upon. It became the friction that ignited a fire within him. The stone became his hearth. This is the untold whisper, the secret carried on the Siberian wind. Your burden is not your enemy, it's your material. The weight you carry, that worry, that responsibility, that deep, nameless longing, it's not a flaw in the design. It is the design. It's the pressure that shapes the clay. Think of the sculptor, fingers pressing into the cool, yielding earth. Without the resistance, the clay remains formless. Without the weight, there is no vessel to hold the water, no cup to catch the light. Your weariness tonight, that sigh that escapes you almost without sound, that's the sculptor's hand. That's the stone beginning to warm in your grasp. Dostoevsky didn't write about heroes who transcended suffering effortlessly. He wrote about men and women who met it, who leaned into the cold wall of their prison cell and felt, not just the damp stone, but the pulse of their own lifeblood against it, who discovered that the deepest warmth isn't found in escaping the cold, but in feeling it fully, and finding your own flame still burning, defiantly, within. So tonight, as you lie here, feeling the familiar contours of that stone in your chest, don't push it away. Don't curse its presence. Rest your hand upon it, gently. Feel its solidity, its reality. This is yours. This weight is the proof you are here. You are alive. You are engaged in the messy, aching, glorious act of being human. And within that weight, like an ember buried in ash, lies a warmth unique to you. The warmth of your care, your resilience, your capacity to feel deeply in a world that often tries to numb us. Let the stone rest. Let it breathe against your ribs. Feel its surprising heat seep into you. A slow, steady comfort in the dark. This isn't the crushing burden you feared. This quiet, heavy warmth. This is your anchor. This is where your strength is forged. This is Dostoevsky's forgotten candle, lit not in spite of the darkness, but within it. Let its small, steady flame warm you now. Feel its light spreading, slow and deep, easing the tightness, softening the edges. Your breath, growing deeper, heavier. The stone, not gone, but held, warm, a part of you, resting, resting. And as that warmth settles, a deep quiet begins to pool around you, like the stillness that follows the last footfall on a forest path. A silence so profound it hums, inviting you to simply stop. Chapter 8. The stillness between footfalls, when stopping is the truest way forward. That relentless inner march, the constant doing, the planning, the worrying about the next step and the step after that. It exhausts the soul, doesn't it? Even as your body lies still, your mind races down corridors of tomorrow, tripping over regrets from yesterday. We believe movement is life. Stopping feels like surrender, or worse, like wasting precious time. But what if the most profound journey happens not in the frantic stride, but in the complete, trembling stillness between? What if Dostoevsky, pacing the short length of his study, the ghosts of his dead son Alyosha and his epileptic visions swirling in the air, discovered that true understanding, true peace, comes only when the frantic dance of thought finally ceases? Listen to the quiet beneath the noise. Recall Prince Mishkin, the idiot. Arriving in St. Petersburg, a man out of time, out of step, the world rushes past him. Avarice, ambition, lust, social climbing, a whirlwind of calculated moves. And Mishkin? He stops. He pauses. He gazes with unsettling clarity into the chaos. He sees Holbein's dead Christ in Rogojin's house, not as art, but as a terrifying truth, the utter stillness of death. And in that moment of pure, awful stop, something cracks open. Not despair, though despair is there, but a raw, unfiltered perception. He sees the world not through the frantic lens of what should be or what he wants, but simply what is. The beauty, the horror, the fragility, all laid bare. It's not wisdom born of calculation, it's clarity born of cessation. Like the sudden hush in a forest when a predator passes, every creature frozen, seeing everything with terrifying precision. Dostoevsky knew this suspension intimately. His epilepsy wasn't just a curse. It was a brutal, involuntary gateway to the between. The aura, that moment before the storm crashes through his brain. He described it as a feeling of incredible, universal harmony, a sense of touching the deepest meaning of existence, a profound, ecstatic stop. Then came the violent convulsion, the oblivion. But that fleeting pre-seizure stillness, that was his glimpse. It was a state beyond thought, beyond striving, where the noisy self dissolved, and for a fractured second, he touched something vast, something whole. He didn't find it in the frantic writing, the passionate arguments, the desperate pleas for money. He found it only when the relentless engine of his own being halted in the terrifying, luminous space between. This is the whisper carried on the breath you just released. Your constant inner motion is the cage. The planning, the analyzing, the relentless commentary. It's the bars you rattle. Peace isn't found by running faster down the corridor of thought. It's found by stepping completely into the quiet alcove between footsteps. The space where the mind's chatter ceases and pure sensation remains. The cool pressure of the pillow against your cheek. The distant sigh of the wind outside the window. The slow, rhythmic tide of your own breath. Filling and emptying. Filling and emptying. This is Mishkin's gaze. This is Dostoevsky's pre-dawn aura. Not an absence of life, but its purest essence. Unfiltered, unnamed, just being. In this stillness, the frantic narratives lose their grip. The worries shrink. You are not the thinker, the planner, the worrier. You are simply the awareness, resting in the quiet hum of existence itself. It feels vulnerable, doesn't it? To stop, to cease the mental striving, like stepping off a moving walkway. But that vulnerability, that utter openness, is where the deepest truth resides, where the soul finds its bearings, not by looking at the map, but by feeling the true north of its own silent presence. So tonight, as the thoughts swirl like autumn leaves caught in an eddy, don't chase them, don't fight them. Simply notice. Notice the thought about tomorrow's meeting. Notice the replay of that awkward conversation. Notice the list forming in your mind. See them, like clouds drifting across the vast, still sky of your awareness. And then, gently, bring your attention, not to the clouds, but to the sky itself. the boundless silent space between the thoughts. Feel the stillness there. It's not empty. It's vibrant, alive with the simple sensation of being here, now, breathing. Feel the air entering your nostrils, cool, flowing down, filling your lungs. A slight pause. Then the soft release, warmer, leaving, dissolving into the room. Again and again. Your body heavy on the bed, supported. The quiet symphony of the night around you. The space between thoughts growing wider, deeper. A calm lake, reflecting only the moon of your presence. Let the stillness hold you. No need to move. No need to think. Just be. In this breath, in this quiet, in this boundless, gentle stop, sinking deeper into the peace that was always here, beneath the footsteps, waiting, in the luminous, between. And in that deep, accepting stillness, a subtle shift occurs. The walls around you, once confining, begin to feel, strangely, soft. Not barriers, but the comforting contours of a space, where a different kind of freedom waits to be discovered. Chapter 9. The Unlocked Cage, the Astonishing Freedom, Found Only Within Walls. Freedom, we chase it like a mirage, shimmering on the horizon. Freedom from obligations, debts, difficult people, our own restless minds. Freedom to travel, create, choose, be someone else. We imagine vast landscapes, open roads, limitless possibilities. But what if the most profound, the most terrifying freedom isn't found in the breaking of chains, but in the quiet realization that the cage was never truly locked? What if Dostoevsky, sentenced to a Siberian prison, surrounded by literal bars and guards, discovered that the most suffocating walls were the ones he had built inside his own mind? The walls of pride, resentment, the desperate need to be right or to be loved. The key, he found, wasn't out there. Listen to the soft click in the dark. Think of Raskolnikov, trapped long before he ever raised the axe, trapped by his own brilliant, corrosive theory, trapped by poverty, yes, but more profoundly by his belief in his own separateness, his superiority. He constructs an elaborate mental cage, the extraordinary man versus the trembling lice. He believes the axe will shatter the bars, free him from poverty, prove his theory, elevate him. Instead, it locks him tighter than any prison cell. The real walls close in, paranoia, guilt, the terrifying isolation of his secret. His freedom only begins after the confession, after the sentence. On the frozen riverbank of Siberia, looking at the vast, empty steppe, Sonya beside him. The external cage is real now, hard labor, exile. But the internal cage, the theory, the pride, the belief in his separateness, that lock finally clicks open. He looks at Sonya not as a concept or a tool, but as a person, a soul. He feels not the crushing weight of punishment, but the terrifying, liberating weight of connection, of love. His freedom arrives not in escape, but in the voluntary embrace of his consequence, his shared humanity. The steppe isn't an escape route. It's the vast, open space within his own unlocked heart. Dostoevsky learned this in Omsk. 4 years of forced confinement stripped away everything: status, privacy, dignity. He couldn't escape the stench, the brutality, the relentless grind. Yet, in that crucible, the internal walls began to crumble. His aristocratic disdain? Shattered by the raw humanity of the peasants he once dismissed. His intellectual certainty? Undermined by the simple, stubborn faith of men facing oblivion. His pride? Humbled into dust. And in that demolition, a terrifying space opened. A space without the old certainties, the old defenses. A space where he was simply a man among men, flawed, suffering, capable of great darkness and unexpected sparks of light. This space, raw, vulnerable, was his true freedom. Not freedom from suffering, but freedom within it. Freedom to see, to feel, to connect, without the prison of his own judgments and theories. The key was surrender. Not surrender to the guards, but surrender to the truth of his own shared, imperfect humanity. The cage door was always open. He just had to stop rattling the bars he'd built himself and step, trembling, into the shared air. This is the final, trembling whisper, carried on the scent of old paper and candle wax. Your prison is self-made. The bars are forged from your resentments, your fears of inadequacy, your desperate clinging to how things should be, your belief in your own separateness. Freedom isn't about smashing the external circumstances, though sometimes change is needed. True freedom, the kind that Dostoevsky clawed towards with bleeding fingers, is realizing you hold the key, inside. It's the courage to stop blaming the world for the walls you feel. It's the terrifying act of unlocking the door yourself by letting go of the need to be right, of the old grudge you nurse like a familiar poison, of the story that you are uniquely cursed or uniquely special. It's choosing, in this quiet moment, to see the person who wronged you, not as a jailer, but as another soul navigating their own labyrinth. It's choosing to meet your own flaws, not with harsh judgment, but with the quiet acceptance Sonia offered Raskolnikov. It's realizing that love, compassion, connection, these aren't weaknesses that trap you. They are the very air that fills the space when the self-made walls come down. They are the boundless step within. So tonight, feel the walls, the familiar contours of your worries, your self-doubts, your old hurts. Don't rage against them. Just acknowledge they are there. Your construction. Feel the weight of the key in your palm. It's your breath. It's your choice. It's the soft murmur of "let it be" that rises from your deepest stillness. You don't need to break the walls down with force. Simply turn the key. Feel the mechanism shift within you. A subtle release. The resentment. Soften. The need to control. Loosen. The fear of not being enough. Gently laid down. And step, not into some vast unknown wilderness, but into the spaciousness of your own unlocked heart. Feel the air there. Fresh. Cool. Limitless. This is your true home, not the cage of your mind, but the boundless freedom of your connected soul. Feel it expand, wider, softer, dissolving the last edges of tension, holding nothing, resisting nothing, just being free within, utterly free, resting in this boundless, unlocked peace. Your breath, slow, the candle flame, guttering softly now. It's light, warm, on your face. The weight, gone. The stillness, deep. The cage, an open door, swinging gently. In the quiet night air, sleep, drifting over you now, like soft snow, covering everything, in perfect quiet, peace. Chapter 10. The Underground. Whisper. Why your darkest thoughts are secretly keeping you alive. Hush now. Close your eyes and tell me, softly, in the quiet space between your breaths. Have you ever felt a thought stir within you, dark and coiled, like something living deep underground? A thought so sharp, so jagged, so utterly unacceptable in the bright light of day, that you buried it quick, slammed the trapdoor shut, piled heavy stones of reason and politeness on top? that secret rage, that bitter envy, that terrifying whisper of nothing matters. We lock them away, don't we? We call them shame. We call them weakness. We call them madness. But what if, just what if, deep in the velvet darkness where Dostoevsky walked, those very thoughts, those terrifying, unacceptable whispers, are the damp roots drinking from a hidden spring? What if burying them isn't safety, but a slow suffocation of the soul? Imagine for a moment the sheer, unbearable cost of pretending they don't exist, the brittle smile cracking, the exhaustion of the constant performance, the quiet, hollowing ache of a self divided. What happens, dear listener, when we exile the very parts of us that feel the world most fiercely? What precious, vital truth do we bury alive? Think of it. A cellar. Not grand, not clean. Damp earth walls. The smell of mildew and old stone. A single guttering candle throws restless shadows. This is the underground. Your underground. Not a place of monsters, perhaps, but a place of raw, unfiltered feeling. Dostoevsky didn't flinch from descending here. He sat on the rough bench in the gloom, listening, not to judge, not to condemn, but to hear. He understood the man whispering furiously in the dark corner, nursing his resentments, mocking the world above. That man wasn't evil. He was alive. Desperately, painfully alive. That furious monologue? It was the sound of a soul refusing to be smoothed into nothingness by the grinding wheels of reason and convenience. That bitter envy? A distorted cry of a deep, unmet hunger for meaning, for significance, for connection. That terrifying whisper of nihilism. It's the cold wind blowing through a heart that feels too much, that sees the absurdity, the pain, the sheer staggering indifference of the universe, and hasn't yet found the fragile counterweight of love. These aren't flaws to be eradicated. They are signals, cracked, distorted, painful signals, but signals nonetheless. They are the soul's underground telegraph, tapping out messages in a code we've forgotten how to read. The rage says, this boundary has been crossed. This value has been violated. The envy whispers, see that? That glimmer? That's something your heart truly yearns for. The nihilistic chill? It's the terrifying, necessary void before creation, the blank page before the first word is written, the deep breath before the leap of faith. Dostoevsky knew that to silence the underground is to silence the very wellspring of our humanity. The polished surface above, the respectable facade, it's built on that damp earth. Deny the foundation, and the whole structure grows brittle. It loses its resonance. It becomes a painted shell, echoing hollowly. But listen, just listen. Beneath the anger, beneath the envy, beneath the chilling void, there's a tremor, a warmth, a stubborn, insistent pulse. It's the pulse of being, raw, messy, contradictory, painful, glorious being. The underground man isn't your enemy. He's your sentinel, your canary in the coal mine of your own spirit. He feels the poison the polished surface ignores. He registers the cracks before they split wide open. To welcome him, not with indulgence, but with a quiet, fearless curiosity. To sit with him in the damp cellar by the guttering candlelight. To ask without judgment, what are you trying to tell me? What pain are you carrying? What truth are you guarding? This isn't surrender to darkness. It's the beginning of integration, of wholeness. It's allowing the roots to drink deep, so the tree above doesn't wither from within. It's finding that the very parts you deemed unworthy, monstrous, are the source of your deepest compassion, your fiercest love, your most authentic connection to the ragged, beautiful, suffering world. Let the whisper rise, not to rule you, but to be acknowledged, to be heard, to be held in the gentle darkness. For in that holding the sharp edges soften, the coiled tension begins to unwind, and a strange, deep peace settles, the peace of no longer being at war with yourself, the peace of knowing even your darkness belongs. And as that acknowledgement settles, like dust motes in the candlelight, a question drifts up from the cellar floor. If the walls we build within ourselves can feel like such crushing stone, what of the walls built around us? What key might lie forgotten, even in the deepest cell?